You put a Queensland jersey on Dane Gagai and he finds a way to score a try.
Cam Munster, he's going to be the one to watch.
He deserves a try.
Even though he's only young, he's such a big name, he's such a promising star.
Well, we've seen plenty of this in Origin. This is one of the best. McCartney will score. And Queensland celebrates. He smashed. That's a brilliant rugby league try.
Chip chase anyway? No? Something different, mix it up.
Pride is a wonderful thing for a footballer.
Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Queenslander with Sam Thaiday and Wally Lewis. Boys, the big talking point this week, Craig Bellamy re-signed with the Storm 5 more years, so I think he'll be 80, 87 by the time he leaves the Storm.
Just a couple of years younger than Wayne is now at the moment.
Yeah, just about. How good's that for Melbourne that they've got rid of the poachers, that he will stay there?
Fantastic.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. He's regarded as the best coach in rugby league at the moment. Bennett certainly had that tag for a considerable period. But Bellamy is one of those guys, I think everybody that makes a judgment on him says that he can turn some pretty average footballers into some wonderful performers week in, week out. And you've only got to have a look at some of the players that he's had. And after, of course, they lost the Golden Three, everybody suggested that Melbourne were never, ever going to go good in that period, yet they've continued their dominance. So that is a real indication of the ability of the man, and I'm sure he's an absolute perfectionist.
Yeah, I think the Melbourne Storm have a brilliant blueprint down there, and he's a huge part of it. Whether it's a coaching director's role or him as a coach, whoever's going to be coaching them in the future, with Craig Bellamy looking over what they're doing, he'll instill the same things that he has instilled at the moment, and he'll keep that tradition going of success down there in the Melbourne Storm. So well done to the Melbourne Storm. Bad luck to every other club out there.
Yeah. Did you ever get coached by him, Sammy, in any rep sides over the years? Can you remember?
Unfortunately, I was never coached by him. I would have loved to have had him as a coach. I've only heard fantastic and wonderful things about him as a coach. Hard man, sets tough tasks for his team, but you look at his record and it shows and shines. So, I didn't get that opportunity though. And
now turning to the Broncos, vastly improved performance against Penrith, almost beat them, almost tied the second place team on the NRL ladder. What did you like about that performance?
Love sitting there watching that game, Adam. I've got to say it was one of the most impressive of the year. They were very good even early. A lot of people thought that the Broncos were going to fold. Then the questions start to, Penrith taking their time getting into it. The Broncos, I thought they were pretty much in control for quite some time. Not too many teams are able to keep Penrith tryless for the first half of a game, but certainly their performances was fantastic. They ended up getting 3 tries in 11 minutes, and I think when that happened, everyone started to say, oh no, the Broncos were in trouble here. Here comes the scoreboard, it'll start rattling. But there was a refusal to submit by the Broncos. They displayed plenty of it, and I was really inspired by watching the players. I thought that is their finest performance of the year, particularly when you're up against the competition leaders. You've got to be at your best. The toughest game, I think, will now come the one that follows that one. They've proved it against the competition leaders. Now they've got to come up against every other team in the competition.
And Sammy, 2 tries in that game came from the middles, Kobe Hetherington and Ethan Bullimore, late try there. Do they need to get a bit more out of their back line, get a bit more creativity, a bit more spark?
I'd love to see the forwards actually work a little bit more together. I've seen it with some of the other teams in the NRL at the moment, where forwards are stringing passes to one another, offloading to one another in the middle of that field. I'd love to see the Broncos do a little bit more of that. That'd be great. I know we've got some strike weapons on the outside. Definitely having Tony Staggs in the team helps the Brisbane Broncos, but we've got some great forwards there, even just to the point of I would love to see just someone backing up Payne Huss every time he run the ball. If I was playing in the Broncos team, I would just be his little yap, just nipping at his heels every time he ran the ball, because he creates opportunities. He draws defenders in. He is big, he is strong, he can offload. Mixing things up in the middle there would be brilliant. I know that's something they can work on going forward, and they've got a good chance at opportunity this week against the North Queensland Cowboys.
And Walt, how important is Adam Reynolds is coming next year? We all know that. How important is it to just not sit back and go, oh, things will improve next year? Player-wise, how important is this next month for them to stand up? Because a lot of players are playing for their future in that backline.
That's exactly right, Adam. You hit the nail on the head there. They will be playing for their positions, their future at the club, if they just put in pretty average performances over the next few weeks. So I don't think there'll be that much inspiration from those above to keep them and make sure that a position will go their way. They've got to be able to prove that Reynolds will be given plenty of talent to work with. Because Adam Reynolds' signature at the club is not going to guarantee instant success for the Broncos. A wonderfully talented player, but he's going to have to get a lot of help from the players in support.
Well, you can see at South Sydney at the moment, the calibre of players that are around him, some of the forwards that he has. He's got Latrell Mitchell there as well. He's got Cody Walker. These are players that chime into what he does, and we need the same thing going forward next year. And Wally, you hit the nail on the head. These guys, for the rest of the season, are going to really have to show energy and effort and continue to bring the same energy and effort they did against Penrith to every team they played towards the end of the season.
And two quick ones, boys, before we wrap it up on the Broncos. Tony Staggs out of 10 since his return. What do you give him out of 10?
Well, it's kind of been a little bit hard. His first 2 games back, he didn't play the full amount of time, and I know and understand that. We don't want to push him too hard too early, but even just I know it sounds funny to say, and it's such a young, hip thing to say. He just brings a vibe. He brings an energy and effort out there, and people follow him, and they bounce off that. And I think he's been fantastic. I'll honestly give him a 9 out of 10.
Yeah, I was going to say a 7.5, Sam. I know I'm a hard marker there, but we've got to remember that he's had a considerable period out, so it's going to take him a couple of weeks to find form, and then there'll be the critics suggesting that he hasn't had the game's best players providing him with opportunities. Love watching him in defence. He hates getting beaten by his opposing centre, and to see him put in 100% effort has been particularly impressive. Once again, it's been a long time out of the game for him. He does add instant experience to the Broncos backline, and perhaps that's been responsible for adding a little bit of confidence. The way that they've performed, certainly last week, and he had a go. He really had a dig, and I'm sure he's a bit of a hard marker on his own ability. He'll say that he's not yet playing at his best. That leaves an opportunity for him to prove that he is a great judge and a great footballer.
And the other one, boys, Xavier Coates, you're coaching. Is he in the team or out of the team at the moment?
I still think he's one of the best wingers that we have at the Brisbane Broncos, and I'd love to see him playing footy. I know that he is leaving the club at the end of the year, but for the time being, we need to save face and start winning some games. And I know that he's a great finisher out there on the wing, so I'd love to see him on the wing.
Yeah, I realise I'm not being, critical of those that have made the judgments to push him to the side, but to me, if you're coaching for your players' confidence and for confidence in the club, you've got to produce your best team on the field. There have been a lot of players that have given up clubs to come to the Broncos, and I'm sure they weren't handed the slap across the face. So I know it's very tough to almost be critical of a decision that Kevy and his coaching staff made. But I think that when you've got a player that boasts those skills, it's just not common sense to waste it. You've got to use the best players possible.
And look at the opposite end of the spectrum, Rabbitohs. Adam Reynolds is coming to the Broncos. Could you imagine the outrage if the Bunnies said, nah, Adam Reynolds, you can go play reserve grade for the rest of the year? So there's a lot of moving factors.
But it's very, very different circumstances as well. So the Bunnies are playing for a premiership at the moment.
Yeah, and the Broncos are out of finals contention. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think the Broncos, they're playing for a bit of pride.
Yeah.
It's not worth as much as a premiership. There's no doubt about that. But gee, for the players' confidence, for the coaches' confidence, and for the future
and
of those.
We're playing for bums on seats next year. We want our members to return next year. We want them to fill Suncorp Stadium, and we have to, fill them with that confidence that we've got a great team there. Yeah. So we are playing for that as well.
And another team desperate for a win at the moment, our northern neighbours, the North Queensland Cowboys, improved showing as well against the Storm. Boys, what did you think about that one?
They were fantastic against the Storm. I was sitting on the sideline with JT up there in Townsville, and I watched this game, and their line speed was like almost just tiptoeing on that line of almost being offside. They were in Melbourne's face. They really had a crack. You inject a couple of guys into that North Queensland team. You know, you put a Hamaso back in there and a Val. They score more points and they beat Melbourne Storm on that night. That was the only thing that kind of stopped them. They did a really, really good job, and it just sets up for an absolute cracking game on Friday night, the Cowboys versus the Broncos here at Suncorp Stadium. So, yeah, really looking forward to that one.
Sam, that game in Townsville was a match, I think, that a lot of the North Queensland players proved to themselves exactly what they are capable of. To a lot of people watching on TV, they would have said, Storm are taking it a little bit too easy, not as serious as they should be. Well, you could see that the fear of them copping a spray from Coach Bellamy at the end of it was there at the end of the tunnel. So perhaps that was enough to frighten them into it. But I think the North Queensland players proved plenty to themselves, and they would have got a great deal of confidence out of that performance.
And what about Jake Granville going from hooker to fullback? I think the first time since Queensland Cup days when he was a young kid. What did you make of that?
Oh, I'm sure he's going to pick up a new nickname, Jake. It'll be chess piece, just getting moved around to all the different positions and areas. I had a look at it. I like this kid. I always have enjoyed watching him play. You could see that he was absolutely shot at the end of the game. He was buggered. He'd had enough, but was it a great position for him? Well, he'd played there, you know, a couple of times before, had the opportunity, but certainly not, whilst in the NRL. I don't think it was in his, favourite position category, put it that way. But to be able to have a player like him that can play fullback up to hooker, the only one he won't volunteer for is front row, I can guarantee that.
He will still do a hit up though, Wally. I bet you right now. As
gutsy as they come, and I think that the coach would love, and teammates would love having him on board.
Yeah, he was absolutely gassed. I remember seeing him at one point in time when they kicked in behind him, and I think there was almost a 40-20 attempt. And yeah, Jake Granville, he definitely had the broken back. He had the head was back swayed. So yeah, he was definitely buggered after that one.
How would you guys go back in the day? A stint at fullback, a bit of a rest.
No
chance?
I jokingly put the number 1 jersey on one day at training and was pretending to catch high balls, but. No chance at all. It is such a key position within a team. There's so much responsibility. Your positional wise when you got to defend the kicks, getting your defensive line set in attack, making sure you're in the right position. So all those fantastic and great fullbacks out there in our game, I absolutely respect what you do, and they do a lot of hard work out of the end as well.
I've played a couple of positions. Lock, where I started, went to 5'8", played one game at centre. I had one game at fullback, and that was while I was playing for the Valleys Club in Brisbane, Fortitude Valleys, and Ross Strudwick put me at fullback because I was late for training. He said, if you can do that was the punishment. Get back there and you'll be catching all the kicks that come your way. And it was what a funny game. We ended up winning it pretty easy. So, and I can remember him saying to me, well, that was your... that was the insult that I was going to give you playing back there. And I said, mate, I loved it back there. Give me the opportunity to play there again. And I could feel my nose growing as I said it. I never did, and I was the happiest man alive, I can tell you that. It is a position that I don't think they get properly rewarded. A lot of the forwards say, you blokes at fullback never do any work in defence, only if somebody breaks through. But to be there waiting under the high ball every time, I think I'd rather wish that on someone else rather than myself.
It's such a lonely position all the way at the back. But another player of the Cowboys back three who's more familiar with being back there, Kyle Felt, 100th try on the weekend. I've been told to talk about this. It's not just because he's one of my favourite players. Lockie always gives it to me. Kyle Felt, Corey Oates, two of my favourite players, but Ryan Pappenhausen's probably my favourite player. But boys...
Did you go to school with Kyle Felt? Was he in grade 8?
Same school.
No?
And I think he was in primary school while I was in high school there, Ignatius Park College up there in Townsville. He's a lot better footballer than I ever was.
Oh, yeah.
You went to Kerwin, the
I was a
opposing
bear.
school, so
Yeah.
hopefully Felty scored a lot of tries against Kerwin back in
He
the
scored
day.
none. He scored none against Gerwin. Yeah.
But where does he rank? He's been there a long time. You think of Kyle Felt, you immediately think of that grand final try. Unfortunately, sorry to bring it up, Sammy, in
No,
2015. But where does Kyle Felt rank? He's still got a few years left in him, but Cowboys-wise, where is he?
To be honest, I think he's a Cowboy for life. I'd love to see him finish his career there in Townsville, and it's a fairy tale story. Local kid, grew up playing all his junior footy there, went through high school there. I think he's got to finish his career in North Queensland. It was a huge milestone for him to reach 100 career tries. He got the first one kind of taken away from him, but the 100th one came up for him, and he scored some fantastic tries for the Cowboys. Not just the 2015 grand final, but there's been plenty of chances, opportunities where he's won the game for the Cowboys, and I think he's a great player, he's a great finisher, and that's what you want your wingers to do. He's a big body to carry out of trouble, and I'd love to see him sign until the end of his career.
Yeah, he's a consistent performer, and I think he loves it up there. Everything's been in his favour since he first came into the first grade side. As the big matches, he certainly performed well. Who can forget the way that he finished off 2015? Sorry to bring it up again, but there was also the 2017 grand final, and where he was up against the competition's best, Suliasi Vunivalu and Josh Addo-Carr. There weren't a couple of bad ones that were opposite, but I think that he's always held his own. He's performed quite well, and he just seems to me to be a North Queensland guy that's been very happy with his on-field performances, strives to achieve better every time he goes onto the field, but is not the sort of player that would be all that comfortable with being moved around like a chess piece if he believes that he's going to pick up a few more bucks in different areas. He's a very consistent player.
He scored a hat-trick last time he played at Suncorp Stadium against the Broncos, so hopefully for all your Cowboys fans does the same. Second leading try scorer, I think, last year. Alex Johnston just pipped him on the line. But the Queensland team most likely to play finals this year, the Gold Coast Titans. Sammy, you and I were on the sideline. Impressive performance against the Dragons, but Justin Holbrook must be a viewer of this Queensland show. He listened to you with David Fafita, put him back on the bench, gave him a bit of a pep talk, and that seemed to work wonders.
Yeah, I think Dave went into that game thinking that I don't have to just hang out here and play the 80 minutes. So it gave him the chance, opportunity to be that explosive player, which we all know he can be. I think there's some little things in Dave's game that he can work on, and he'll continue to work on as he gets more experience. But it was really good to see the way he played, the way he led his team. He ran over a few small guys out there as well.
Poor old Cody Ramsey, having nightmares.
Exactly. He'll have nightmares forever, I think, Cody Ramsey. But it was really good to see. And Justin, if you want to keep on watching this, we'll continue to give you tips, and we'll send you an invoice for coaching. Yeah.
Yeah, you always expect more from your big names. There's no doubt about that. And there's been no criticism there, but big bucks, big effort. I suppose you've got to inspire others in the team, and certainly that was the case. We keep talking about Cody Ramsey. I think he would have come up with the line at the end of it. It would have been easier to stop a truck that was coming that way. But he's one of those guys that we have a full expectation that every time he goes out there, he's going to produce his best. If you're getting, plenty of cash for it, you certainly need to produce that to evade a lot of the criticism that may come your way. But we know that he can perform. We've seen him do it at all levels. So the expectation will be there that he produces it week in, week out.
Yeah, the Titans only get better next week. Well, we don't know yet, but if Fogarty comes back into their team, it was a fantastic team effort. I thought the young guy, Toby Sexton, who debuted, he was absolutely fantastic and really looked like a first grader out there. So, they've got a little bit of depth there, which is fantastic. I thought their forwards were brilliant, and they will need to work on a few things defensively to make sure that they can match it with some of these bigger teams going forward. And if they do get into that 8 and go deep into the 8, they will have to make sure they nail those things.
And they'll have the benefit of playing a home final. If they do make it to the finals, no team will play a home final except the Gold Coast at the moment. But while Sammy mentioned Toby Sexton, him and Jamal Fogarty, is that your best halves combination now? Do you keep the kid in there?
Yeah, sorry, Adam. Yeah, it is. I mean, if they are performers, you've got to keep them in that position. They're displaying confidence. Toby, I'd heard a fair bit about him, but hadn't quite seen his best performances. As soon as he got on the field, it was quite obvious that he was in there to book that spot and make it as difficult as possible. And I think that Ash Taylor will be one of the blokes that probably feels that the toughest of all. He was a guy that was just in that position. The expectation was that he was going to be the player that the Gold Coast relied upon week in, week out throughout the course of the whole season. Yeah. Unfortunately, that hasn't been the case, and I don't mean to be overcritical with it, but when we've got another couple of guys in there that we're talking about now, in particular Toby, he's one of those young, hungry men that know that he's playing for his full-time career, and he wants to get in there and produce his best every time that he gets an opportunity. And the confidence that was on that young fella's face, I think, was the part that inspired me. I got all excited watching him. And
he had a little fan club in the crowd too, sitting not far from where we were both sitting on the sideline. So it was really good to see. Yeah. And like one of my favourite players for the Gold Coast, and I love sitting there watching him play. And one of the most underrated players was Corey Thompson.
That break he made.
That break he made, and the team really let him down on the next play, but. I don't know, he's like 5 left foot steps and they still fell for it. But he is one of those players, I think, going forward and into the finals will be one of those game-breaking players who will score a freakish try in the corner or make a long break to give the Titans opportunity. And I just think he's a really, really good player.
And he's keeping the Don out of the team at the moment. That Gold Coast Titans team doesn't even have Anthony Don at the moment, so a lot of try-scoring potential there. But let's turn our attention to Friday night's big game, the Queensland Derby. We can't think of that game without thinking of the 2015 Grand Final. Where does it rank in terms of Grand Finals? As a Cowboys fan, one of the best moments of my life. As a Broncos player, Sammy, probably not.
Yeah, it was a little bit heartbreaking, to be honest. But, you know, it just shows you, first and foremost, how hard it is to get into a grand final and how hard it is to win. I was lucky and fortunate enough to be a part of a successful one in 2006, and it took me so long to then get back into one. And I really enjoyed the whole week. We got to the game and, you know, we were seconds away from winning it, and it will go down in history as one of the greatest, and it will be on people's highlight reels for many, many years to come. So, you know, I'm happy in that sense that I got to be a part of some history, and you know, I still haven't watched it back fully, but one day I will.
Sam, I've got to tell you, the players from the North Queensland Cowboys certainly enjoyed that win, but there was one bloke that I was sitting next to in the newsroom that enjoyed it even more than any of their players, the celebration that started. But as exciting a grand final as you'll ever be privileged to watch, that was as good as they come. That was absolutely sensational, and I can remember hearing a lot of people that were involved in the media in Sydney said, "Oh, that wasn't a bad grand final from the two Queensland teams." And I thought, hello, they can play a bit of footy up there. You know, Origin records, previous grand finals have proven that they're not too bad. It was open, it was entertaining, it was exciting, and anybody that wasn't pleased or didn't think that rugby league received a massive boost from watching that game, they need to go and just take a cold, hard look at their judgment process, because that was a superb grand final and a wonderful inspiration for rugby league in general.
Yeah, but even just the clashes that we've had over, you know, the last decade have been absolutely brilliant, and it will continue this Friday. I think both teams are coming into some form. Yeah, they're probably not where, you know, a lot of people would like to see these two Queensland teams. You know, you'd like to see them a little bit higher up the ladder, but they're both coming into this game with some great form. You know, the Broncos were brilliant against the Panthers, and then on the other hand, the Cowboys were brilliant against the Melbourne Storm. So they'll come out and, yeah, this is going to be a fantastic clash.
Does the 2006 Premiership win, Sammy, make it a little bit easier to digest, like, as opposed to haunting you for the 2015 one? Like,
for me, yes. For some of the other guys that didn't get to be a part of the 06, you know, they're still playing to get back into a grand final again. Where
do you feel lucky that you had that? Yeah,
100%. And I was 21 when we won the grand final in 2006, and I probably took it for granted, you know, thinking that the team and the squad that we had, I'd be in there all the time. You know, I'd just be in a grand final every year, but it just doesn't happen that way. So to get back in one and go oh so close, yes, it's heartbreaking, but it made me appreciate the 06 grand final way much more, a lot more.
Do you feel bad for Ben Hunt? Because he still to this day cops a bad rap for that, but he was sensational that entire season, and maybe 2 minutes he wasn't on his game.
I absolutely do feel for him, and I think he's redeemed himself in different ways. I think his Origin performance this year in Game 3 was absolutely brilliant. I think he's donned the Australian jersey and done some brilliant things for Australia as well. And he will get his time and he'll get his chance, I'm for sure in the future to get back into a grand final. And I hope that he does get his chance to hold up that trophy and put a ring on the finger.
You know, as far as grand finals go, though, the most exciting grand finals, and I know I'm a little bit biased here, but I think the three best, most memorable grand finals that were played were the Broncos' first grand final. Certainly,
the Dragons one.
The Broncos, yep. When they won it, it just set rugby league alight in Queensland, and it was magnificent. And the Broncos' display in that game was fantastic. They went on to bigger and better things. Newcastle, when they won their grand final, I mean, it just set the country alight. It was probably even more spectacular than the Broncos win. And then when North Queensland did it, I mean, it was a long time before the town went to sleep. There were celebrations completely throughout North Queensland, and rugby league was the real winner. There were some wonderful displays and some proud moments, but I'm sure the NRL bosses, despite not favouring one side or the other, were very happy to promote the game in the north, and rugby league went from strength to strength.
So, Wally, what you're trying to say is non-Sydney-based teams in the grand final.
That's when it's better.
They're the best ones, eh? Is that what you're trying to say?
I wasn't trying to say that, Sam, but nice of you to bring that up.
Come on, Titans. Come on, Warriors. Grand finals, when you guys win it, it'll be huge. But this weekend, Friday night, how does it play out? Who do you think wins and why? Cowboys, Broncos? I'm going to say Cowboys.
Yeah, they're playing pretty well. I know I've actually tipped the Broncos to win this one. Usually the toughest time to win a game is after you put in one of your best performances the week before, and that could be the case again for the Broncos. I'll stick with Brisbane, but they are going to have to be at their best. A better performance indeed.
Yeah, I think the Broncos are going to bring the pain, and I mean Payne Huss, that is. Off the back of a brilliant performance by Payne Huss again, I think the Broncos will get this one in a close game.
How cool will that be? Payne Huss versus Jason Taumalolo at Suncorp Stadium be huge. And you can catch it all live and free on Channel 9. The build-up on Wide World of Sports, your home of NRL footy here in Queensland.